pull up a cup of coffee, and let's get this party started.
We're the uplines you didn't know you needed, but now you have.
This is the podcast for women who are building a direct sales business, but want to do it the right way.
Melanie has a decade of experience in direct sales. She's earned the top in industry 4 years in a row and has grown a multi-million-dollar organization. She gives a no BS approach to leadership, recruitment, and organization.
And my bestie Katy has you covered with the rest. From the relationships, the do's and don'ts of branding, her content has been viewed by millions. She doesn't just talk the talk, but she teaches people how to create an intentional brand too.
All right, let's get this party started.
Well, hey, everybody. It is Melanie and Katy of the Direct Sales Done Right podcast, and we're talking about habits today. Mm-hmm. And right before we hit record, we were actually talking about our bad habits. And I said to Katy, what's your bad habit? As she proceeds to say,
none.
I'm flawless.
Zero.
None.
Zilch. Which we all know that isn't true. We all have habits that we want to break, but there's a difference between wanting to break them and actually breaking them. And we thought December is a really good month to actually have this conversation about breaking bad habits. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What is one of the habits that maybe in the past you're like, I need to break this habit, or one that you look forward to breaking in 2024?
One of the habits that I had to break in the past was, oh my gosh. Like I hate that I'm going to say coffee, but that was a recent one.
Okay.
Whenever I was going through my anti-inflammatory journey, I really started to realize that it was causing me to be anxious all day long. And the bigger goal actually was getting rid of my anxiety. And I wanted to find more natural ways to control my anxiety. And when I started to look at some of my behaviors and my habits, I realized that I was really contributing to the problem.
Yeah.
And so caffeine was causing me to have this weird crash. And so I gave up coffee.
You gave up coffee.
I gave up coffee. I replaced it with matcha. And that was a habit that I really had to work hard at breaking.
Yeah.
I know. What about you? Was there one?
I actually was thinking about this one because it relates back to business. Years ago, I had one of my leaders in my organization. I was telling her this story about how I had somehow found myself in a habit of every single time I would be done with work for the evening. And at the time, I would work a lot of evenings. I usually worked from like 9 to 11. And after I would work and I would slay some sales and maybe sign up some members and everything was going really, really well, I would go into the pantry and I would reward myself with like something, like whether it was Cheetos or it was something like a snack of some sort that wasn't healthy at all.
Yeah.
But I realized that it was one that I didn't even think about or acknowledge thing that I was really doing. And I told her about it. I was like, it was almost as if it was a way of rewarding myself for the hard work that I was doing. And because I was associating food with like joy and just a reward, it was actually sabotaging some of the goals that I had set for myself in terms of wellness. And my point for telling you this, and even Melanie, when she was talking about the coffee, is there's a lot of times that we have habits that when we actually reflect on them, when we think about them, we go, ooh, this actually isn't beneficial to me. This actually is preventing me from getting to the next level in my fitness goals and my business goals and my personal goals, my financial goals, whatever it might be. And so one of the things that we have done, one of the tools that we use, and it's going to be right in the show notes too, is our year-end reflection, which calls to the light a lot of these things that we may be doing that are sabotaging our chances of success, especially as we move into the new year. And so today's episode, we're going to give you some practical tips, but I also encourage you to make sure you check out those show notes to get your hands on a copy of that incredible downloadable.
I love that.
Why don't we kick it off? Why don't you share who our listener from social media is?
All right. So each episode we do a listener from social media, and that's somebody that tags us, that goes on to Chic Influencer or Katy Writes Content, Melanie Mitro, and tells us what it is that they loved about the podcast episode that they were listening to. So if you're listening right now, take a simple screenshot and tag us, and you could end up being the listener of the week. And so this week we want to just shout out an amazing listener, Finally Time for Me. So it's literally at Finally Time for Me. You are the listener of the week. Thank you so much for tagging us. If you send us a quick message in the DMs, we just love to chat with you. We'll do a little mini coaching session. You can ask us anything that you want, and we'll give you some feedback for tagging us on social media.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's dive into this week's episode. And we are going to be talking about 3 ways that you can break those bad habits now. So we are going to walk through some practical tips. If you are driving in your car, we're going to be asking you some questions. We're going to have some prompts for you. So this might be an episode that you actually listen back to. But even if you don't have a paper and a pencil in front of you, I guarantee you that downloading that free downloadable is going to be super helpful. So the first tip that we have for you is going to be journaling. And so we thought we would walk you through a couple of the questions we would ask ourselves when it comes to thinking and reflecting on some of the current habits that you currently have. So the first place to start is by asking yourself some very basic questions. And why don't you go ahead and walk them through a couple of those questions?
Sure. All right. So things we want you to ask yourself to get a little bit more clarity is, what do you wish to change in your life? And yesterday as we were filming this, the day we're filming this yesterday, we did our community call. And we talked a little bit about, when we first asked ourselves questions about our vision and our own goals and what we wanted, this would have been a really hard question for me to answer, because I, early on in my network marketing career, would have never actually known what I wanted to change in my life. I wouldn't have known that. So I think for some of you, if you find this to be a difficult question, that is okay. I want to give you permission to just sit with it for a little and to maybe just really become aware of your life and what's going on around you, and really say, like, what do I want to improve? What are the things that I'd like to change in my life? The second journaling question is really, what habits do you need to break? Looking at your life, we talked a little bit about our habits, even as you were sharing. One of the other habits that I'm trying to break is scrolling at night on social media. I find that I'm having a more difficult time falling asleep, and my sleep has been horrible lately. And I also, not lately, but about a month ago, and I also know that eating right before bed is actually really bad for you. So that's something for me. Like, what habits do I need to break? Scrolling before, an hour before bed. I used to look at that as a reward for a long day. I just want to check out all the trending things or fashion or whatever the things that I love. So think about it. What habits do you need to break? And then ask yourself why. For me, it was, I know I need a better quality sleep so that I can show up and be on my A game to serve our people every day. So that was driving the decision. Third, who is in your life now? I want you to look at who your friends are. I want you to look at the people you spend the most time with and really ask yourself, do I need to change that? Are those people elevating me? Are they empowering me? Are they supporting me? They don't always need to necessarily agree with what you're doing, but are they helping to empower you to make those steps in your life and in your business? So ask yourself, who's in my life right now, and are those the right people that I want to have around me? Also looking at your own financial situation. So what's your financial situation look like? Are you happy with where you are? If you were to really get honest with yourself, are you spending too much? So looking at your spending habits, your saving habits, have things gotten out of control? Have you been sort of sweeping things under the rug and saying, I don't even want to look at the bank statements because I don't want to know what's going on in there?
That's a good point too. I actually didn't mean to interrupt you, but I do find this to be incredibly important, is tracking reveals trends, trends reveal a truth, truth creates change. So if you're somebody who's like, I'm just not going to look at the bank account right now, but you're going to Starbucks three days a week, or you and your family go out to eat every single Friday and Saturday night, those are probably things that you want to be aware of, because the little dollars, they do add up.
They do. They do. And if you don't want to pay attention to it,
it's going to get worse.
It really catches up to you. Another question to ask yourself is, what's my energy level? This is one that I ask all the time. An energy level could be your energy in terms of physical energy to get out of bed in the morning, put your feet on the ground and do life. It could be energy, like I'm bringing a positive energy into this meeting, into this space when I'm around these people. So really looking at, what is my energy level? Am I showing up with excitement and joy about the life that I get to live? And am I making sure that the energy I bring is actually empowering people? Because you can walk into a room and shift the energy automatically. If you ever walked into a meeting and you're like, ooh, that person's in a bad
And even
like,
Zoom meetings.
Yes.
You can feel it on Zoom meetings,
you can.
you know?
Yeah, it
So, and
instantly,
we've been there.
it changes the dynamic.
Yeah.
So you have a lot of power in how you show up and affect the room that you are in.
One of our mentors, actually not too long ago, had us go through all of the services that we offered as well. And he had us rank what ones we had a lot of energy when we did them. And we went through and we ranked and we put in order like the number of services that we offered. Here's where my energy is fire, and here is the things that completely deplete me and they just like kill my energy. And even acknowledging the things that give you life and energy and excitement versus the things that drain you and deplete you.
Yeah.
It's really important to know where your natural energy, where you draw from those reserves.
And while you were talking, I thought about sometimes you can't get rid of something in your life. So, but I want to challenge you. So to reimagine it. Maybe you don't love team building, right? But maybe for your network marketing career, you've been taught team building in a way that actually hasn't been very authentic to who you are. And a lot of times we get stuck in this box where we think, I have to do it the way that other people or my upline or leaders in the company are doing. And so this is an open opportunity for you to reimagine that and say, you know, I maybe rate it a 2. I don't love it. But if I were to build a team, how would I do it? And to actually allow yourself to make that energy shift, knowing that that is something you do desire to do. You just have to find a better way to get there.
And then for our friends who are loving every aspect of your business and it's actually hard for you to put it away. So you think about things like making dinner, or doing the laundry, or picking your kids up. I even encourage you to reimagine the way you're looking at those things and the energy you're putting into it. And I'll give you an example. I pick my son up from school, either myself or my husband picks him up. And when we pick him up, it's about a 12-minute drive out there. And I used to be like, I can be so productive for those 12 minutes. Like I always feel like it's in the middle of the day. And then I started to realize, wow, that 12 minutes is an awesome time for me to actually gather my thoughts and regroup and think. So I sit in complete silence as I drive to the school, and then I pick him up and he talks and talks and talks and talks. And he has so much energy and excitement. And I have spent 12 minutes without any distraction. I mean, phone, nothing, no distraction, just me and him in the car. And he is energized, and then I'm re-energized. And guess what? I can go back into the office for the rest of my afternoon, and I feel good. He feels good. It's just a great place to be. So not even just thinking about your business, but saying like those things that you look at as, I have to. What if they become I get to, and I get to do it with joy, and I'm just going to rethink the way that I go about those things.
That was really great. Thank you for sharing that. You know, the next question too is, let's look at your nutrition. And we obviously, if you know us well, you know we come from a background in health and wellness, but this question isn't because, it is obviously because of that, but it's not, we're not trying to sell you health and wellness on this podcast episode. We also understand that your diet drastically affects the way you show up. And in our years of experience and also studying high performance habits and really looking at what people do that are excelling at the next level, they are not eating a crappy diet. Actually, I was listening to a training a couple of weeks ago, and the speaker was really walking through what he does to prepare for events. And he said, in preparation for events, now let me tell you, he's a keynote speaker and does these like 3-day long events. It's very, you know, it's like the top of the scale. And he's like, I eat 6,500 calories a day. But that's so intentional. He's like, what you eat. He also said, what I eat 3 days, I always look at my energy level. Whatever I ate 3 days ago is how I show up today.
Okay.
And so a lot of those little things that I've picked up, okay, what's my diet look like on really busy days? Because if I have back-to-back meetings, or I'm running a lot, or I need to do a presentation, I can't skip breakfast. And we've been guilty of this in the past. Or I can't eat crappy food. If I am going to eat, you know, cookies for breakfast, I am not going to be able to function. I'm going to have a crash. I'm not going to show up as my best self. And not even at work, but that spills over into my personal life. If I work so hard all day long that I've skipped the meals and I haven't drank enough water, I am walking into dinner time or a basketball game with my family 100% depleted and irritated and cranky. And so I'm not giving my family the best of me. So your food and is really important, and we're all wired so differently. Some of us need more protein, some of us need more good fats, but we really ask you, what does your diet look like?
Yeah.
Is that an afterthought because you're just so busy to stop and really think about it?
Love it. And then the last question we would encourage you to journal, and this is just your starting point too, but the last question is, how do you mentally feel? Like even your level of mental exhaustion and I know that many of us wear different hats. Some of us work other jobs. Some of us have kiddos. Some of us have full-time direct sales businesses. And a lot of times there's such a demand on us to have answers or create solutions or be creative that our mental capacity is it's weaning. And we kind of have to say to ourselves, okay, how can I make sure that I am guarding this? So we first have to take inventory. The purpose of all of these questions is to get a pulse. Yes. It's to get inventory. It's to have an understanding of where we currently are. Most people completely skip this stage, especially when they go into the new year. They go tabula rasa, just blank slate. I'm ready to just start over, forget that this even happened, right? Especially when we don't maybe hit our goals or we end a little shy of where we wanted to. We want to forget all about it. I encourage you to not forget all about it. I encourage you to adapt based on what happened this year. Because when you know exactly where you are and you know why you're there, it becomes very clear on what needs to change to be able to get to that next level. And then, so first step was journaling. So we had questions that we needed to journal. The second thing that we want to do is we need to rewrite any narrative that is no longer serving us. So when I look at those questions and I go, okay, when I ask myself what habits I need to break, I really came up with 5 or 6 of them. I have a habit of drinking too much caffeine, or I have a habit of going into the pantry in the evening, or I have a habit of, telling my kids, I'll get to them later, or giving them the iPad, or I have a habit of just ignoring my husband during the weekends because I have to catch up on all my work. When you start to actually see the bad habits that you own and you have, you are the one who now has control over what you can do to change it. And I want to share this quick story with you. Melanie and I preach these things called act as if statements. And act as if statements, if you've never heard us talk about them, they are statements you create where you talk in present tense about the person that you are becoming. And one of my clients, I had a branding client not too long ago. And of course, we go into the story of how you start with the company, why the things matter to you. And she shared this story about how as a teenager, she was really overweight and she got into some really bad habits, just drinking, smoking, and just moved out of her house, really bad decisions and things that forever impacted her life and even how she parents. And she said, one day I was bartending. I think she was bartending or she was a waitress, and she was at the bar and a bunch of her friends came in, and she was like, it was in that moment and I saw all of them and what they were doing and how they were acting, and I was sober and they weren't, and they just looked ridiculous. They looked absolutely full. And I thought, I need to change. And so the first thing that she said to herself was, the first thing that I need to do is I need to lose this weight. So there was about 100 pounds that she needed to take off. And she said, the first thing that I did is I said to myself, I just don't like sugar. And she had been a sugar addict. I mean, she was a sugar addict, and she loved sugar, ate it every day, would be eating it without even thinking about it. And then she started saying to herself, I just don't eat sugar. I don't even like sugar. I don't like it. And she said it over and over and over again until she believed that she didn't actually like sugar. Wow. And years later, she still uses that statement, I just don't like sugar. I just don't eat sugar. And that has helped her maintain a 100-pound weight loss because of the story that she told herself. And that's the importance of really understanding the mental game of any goal that you are setting. So I encourage you to say, what is my internal narrative? Because right now, if I'm saying, I just miss my goals every single year, or I'm just not cut out to be successful, or it's just easier for somebody else. Every time you say that, your energy goes to why it's not working versus what you can do to make it actually work. So what is going to be your act as if statement that is so rooted now in who you are becoming that you have no choice but to become that. And I know that you always give this example of how you became the top coach in the organization and how it was on your mirror. If you want to just like give them a quick recap of what that was.
Yeah, it's so powerful. You know, it's when I wanted to I had this desire, right? I was young in the company. I was only about 2 years in, and I was starting to see this climb, and my mentor in corporate sort of put this bug in my ear. You know, you could be the number one in the company. You could be the top coach. And I remember dismissing it, thinking that's not possible. That's not real. I'd have to sacrifice my whole life. And I went down the rabbit hole of all the reasons why it wouldn't work. And then I started to really think about it and thought, I would really love that. That would be amazing. Could I actually do it? And so I went into the bathroom, and before I took a shower, I took just the tube of lipstick and wrote on the bathroom mirror, I am the top coach of the company, Team Beachbody. And as I looked at it, which is probably what everybody does when they write a big goal that scares the living daylights out of them, you erase it, you panic. So I tried to erase it off the bathroom mirror. But when I got in the shower and took a steaming hot shower, because I am also like you, I love really hot showers. And I stepped out the window, the mirror was fogged, and there it was. I am the top coach at Beachbody through the foggy mirror. And so I panicked, but I started to every day as I stepped out of the shower and saw the mirror fogged up and the I am the top coach of Beachbody sort of on that mirror. I started to do this thing, and I know you can't see me right now if you're listening to this, but I started to put my shoulders back. And I started to take this posture of, I am the top coach of Beachbody. And I was like, I want this. This is who I am. And then I asked myself a very important question. So how does a top coach act? You could insert anything right into there. How does a top recruiter act? How does a top seller act? How does a $1 million earner act? And so then I started to make a list on a sheet of paper of all the ways that I could become that person. So, a top in the company isn't afraid to invite people to join her team. She isn't afraid to boldly post about it on social media. And so then I really began to say, all right, if I want to become her, then this affirmation will only become my reality if every day these actions act as if actions, I have to live them as my truth. And it became a daily checklist that I would run through as I was going through my time blocker to say, did I do that? Was I bold? Did I show up as if I'd already become that person that was top in the company? And eventually, over time, the gap closed from what I wanted to be, and where I currently was, and I became her. I became that person. Yeah. And it was just a process.
Yeah. But I want to note one thing that Melanie did that I didn't speak to when I talked about my client is she talked about the action. When you start to really believe that you are becoming that person that you are capable of becoming, you really get clear about, well, what does that person do? Yeah. How do they act? How do they show up? And that does change. So even for my client who lost the 100 pounds, she didn't just think, I just won't eat sugar. She was like, so what is somebody who really doesn't enjoy sugar? What does their diet look like? What are the things that they eat? And so these little changes started happening. Are you every day going to feel like it? No, it's motivation is a lie. Are you every day going to be like, hi, I've got this. I am this person? No, but it is on you to remind yourself of why you are working towards it as well. All right, the third thing. So we went through the journaling questions. And remember, if you did not catch all those questions, you're going to come back to the podcast. The second thing is we're going to have an act as if statement that really aligns to where we're going in the new year. And the third thing that we're going to do is we are going to reimagine what change can look like if we were going to do it differently this time. So we don't just look at what currently is happening. We are looking ahead at what we want to be different in the new year. So that means there are going to be changes that need to happen. I think they say the definition of an insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? Yeah. And we don't want you to think that way, because what happens is if you keep thinking, I'm just going to do it again, I'm going to have a prettier vision board, or I'm just going to do this year-end reflection and it's going to magically happen. If we don't address why it didn't happen this past year, it's not going to happen in the new year. It just isn't going to happen. So let's actually reimagine this change. So we have 6 questions for you to consider. The first question is visualize next year at this time, how will your life be different? And think about it physically, emotionally, spiritually, financially. whatever it might be for you, really get clear about what that's going to look like. Number 2, we're going to put some tangible goals in place. Put a dollar amount next to the amount of money that you want to earn. Don't just say like, it would be nice to, like make like 6 figures. No.
Yeah.
Write down the amount of money that you are going to make and have that in front of you. So every single day when you look at your board, that vision is right in front of you, and you start working backwards and saying, okay, if I'm going to earn 6 figures in my direct sales business, what am I going to have to do? Well, I'm going to have to make some sales. Well, this year I didn't really make that many sales. So what am I going to have to do? Well, I am going to have to make sure that my content is set up for marketing, not influencing. I am going to have to make sure that I am involved with trainings that actually focus on taking action. Whatever that might be, you have to make sure that you're very clear about it. Third thing, who are you surrounding yourself with? I understand fully that you might have people in your life who do not support where you're going. I know Melanie talks very openly about how her husband was not very supportive at the beginning. We are in no way saying it's time for you to leave your spouse. Like, that's not what we're saying at all. We are telling you to be intentional about the circles that you are putting yourself in. Yeah. Step up and say, I'm going to have to take a new direction. I'm going to have to make a pivot. I'm going to have to be in the room with other people. And we have a heck of a room here at Chic Influencer, but you want to start saying, how am I elevating myself by changing conversations that are happening around me? Number 4, what are you going to do for fun? We can't forget to schedule our joy. It's a big part of what we teach here at Chic Influencer, about just making sure you're intentional about finding joy, not just in your work, but in your life, and making sure your time allots for it. Number 5, what projects do you need to start? We talked about if you have that income goal for direct sales, are there different things you're going to have to do? Are there different ways that you can promote products? Are there different VIP groups that you can run? Are you going to have to start an email list? I'm not saying this to overwhelm you. I'm saying this because there are tools and there are ways for you to get to the goal that if you didn't take any of these tools or resources in the years prior, this is the year you're going to have to do it. And then number 6, how are you planning to take care of yourself? When it gets hard, what are you going to do? When you are tired and you have a big goal, how are you going to make sure that you're not burning out? How are you going to make sure that you are a healthy CEO, that you are focused on your wellness, not just your finances? Because those things are important too.
So we gave you all these things to think about, and I want to just remind you that anytime maybe you're sitting here and you're like getting really excited about this process of reimagining what 2024 is going to look like, and you're like, yes, this is when I'm going to break all the bad habits. It's the new year. It's the new me. And so we come up with this grand plan and we get very excited about it. And the reality is that it's very grand and shiny at first. Yeah. And then the reality sets in that it's hard work. And, Katy and I, we did something in November for our business here at Chic Influencer. We made a big investment. We are reimagining some of the things that we're doing. We've got some really cool, exciting announcements that are happening, and we are excited about it. And we were like, we know we're going to have to change. We know it's going to be really hard. But then when we actually sat down and we had the first strategy meeting and we ripped things apart and put them back together, I will tell you, I did not sleep that night. It felt uncomfortable. I had the eye twitch. My heart was racing. Why? Because we realized we were being stretched. And so the reality is that even when you do get excited about breaking habits or creating change in your life, you also have to understand that the process will feel uncomfortable, and that is actually okay.
So true.
Don't be afraid of that. Just expect that the challenges are going to happen.
I love it. Well, let's close it out. I want to take a minute to just shout out one of our clients who is absolutely incredible, Rosemary Campbell, Chic Branding Experience client. She said, since working with you guys more this year, I created a monthly challenge that is truly mine, and I've converted 5 women to clients in 3-ish months. Thank you for being here and serving us. Oh, she said to partners. Clients to partners. So she has recruited 3 new partners to her business. That's awesome. Well, I'm proud of you, Rosemary. You guys, thank you so much for listening to the Direct Sales Done Right podcast. We'll see you next time.
All right, so if you loved today's episode, make sure you head over to wherever you listened to the episode today and leave us a rating and review. And also take a little screenshot and tag us on Chic Influencer. We'll feature you in our stories. Plus, we'd love to get your feedback and hear from our listeners.
Yep. Until next week, let's make chic happen.